first session of the day 2, which is on Cybersecurity 2.0, from combating viruses to protecting the organization. And before I call on the honorable panel members on stage, I would like to highlight a few points of discussion this panel is going to talk on. Protecting your people and assets, cybersecurity in post-pandemic hybrid work culture, aligning cybersecurity with the new normal of work from home, and many more. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome the honorable panel members in the order of the sequence. Joining us first, Mr. Makarand Kadave, AVP Information Security and Enterprise Risk Management, ICICI Lombard. A big round of applause to Makarandji. Welcome to the panel, Makarandji. Please have your seat. Joining next, we have Mr. Jitendra, Jadhwani, Head Business Transformation and CISO from Tata Motors Finance Limited. A big round of applause to Jitendra-ji. Jitendra-ji, welcome to the panel again. Sir, please have your seat. Joining next, we have Mr. Raja Mohan Kandlakunta, General Manager IT and CISO from IFFCO Tokyo General Insurance Company. A big round of applause to Raja Mohan-ji. Sir, please have your seat. Joining next, we have Mr. Prashant Arbat, CISO from the Akola Urban Co-Operative Bank Limited. A big round of applause to Prashant-ji. Prashant-ji, welcome to the panel again. Please have your seat. Joining next, ladies and gentlemen, we have Mr. Niketan Jadhav, CISO from CDSL Ventures Limited. A big round of applause to Niketan. Please have your seat, Niketan. Welcome to the panel. And now, ladies and gentlemen, would like to call the honorable moderator of the panel, Mr. Bhavesh Kumar, CISO and Vice President IT from SK Finance Limited. A big round of applause to Bhavesh-ji. Bhavesh-ji, welcome to the panel. Please have your seat. So looking forward to a great first session. Bhavesh-ji, all over to you. And here's wishing the panel all the best.
So good morning everyone, and I welcome all our esteemed panelists for this topic of Cybersecurity 2.0. As you know, cybersecurity is quite unpredictable now. On an average, on a daily basis, because most of the people here, in fact, all are from BFSI industry, and we can see this attacks on either on a BFSI or on a healthcare sector, on infrastructure side. It's on a regular basis, and it's quite unpredictable. The way now attacks are being happening, sometimes it's so unique that they use a different methodology. Now all these traditional way to attack on our infrastructure or BFSI or healthcare, it's a changing day by day. So, and the other side, organizations are innovating to be competitive in the market. They are digitizing. That's increased the cyber risk. And to contain all these risks, to mitigate cyber-related risk, compliance risk, regulatory risk, and all other aspects to be in the market, organization has to focus or innovate in a cyber world also. Fine. So, and that is the one aspect. Other aspect is regulators. Regulators are pushing hard to all industries to implement cybersecurity controls. All laws of the land need to be followed. So I will start with my question from Raja Mohanji. So as you know, these days, even before this panel, we were discussing that like how regulators are pushing hard to implement different controls. Even sometimes they say this need to be effective from today onwards. Fine. So how you take steps like the recent IRDA regulation or a certain regulation or RBI regulation? So how you take care of all these regulations related to cyber control?
Thank you, Bhavesh. Good morning, everybody. So as far as regulations are concerned, we are governed by IRDI. We are into insurance business. So regulations, I would say in a way, helping CISOs and CTOs, CIOs to get buying from the management. So ultimately, regulations boils down to, nowadays, cybersecurity is a huge cost to all the companies. So as far as regulations are concerned, it is helping in a way. And government is also taking a lot of initiatives. If I talk about certain, they have come up with new guidelines, new directives last year. So these new guidelines are to inform any cybersecurity incident to certain within 6 hours. So they have given certain guidelines, directives to all the companies, like all the ICT infrastructure like information, communication and technology systems must be enabled with logs, and all the logs to be retained for at least 6 months. And whenever a cybersecurity incident happens, that is to be reported to certain, and that report to be in a particular format. Report can be done through email, fax, or a phone, but that is to be through a prescribed format. And then all the ICT infrastructure must be synced with the NIC's network time protocol, so that time can be tracked and narrowed down to the incident and quickly trace out the root cause of it. And then we have to define a SPOC for all these things, and that is to be informed to certain. And all virtual private servers providers, VPN providers, cloud service providers, all are to maintain the details of the customers, subscribers, precisely. So certain is giving precise directives so that organizations can be safeguarded from malicious attacks, all these cyber attacks. Apart from this, government is also taking initiative on Cyber Swachhta Kendra. Probably you must be aware of it. So government is collecting the IPs of the organization, and they are monitoring continuously. They are monitoring continuously on daily basis. They are reporting the organizations to mitigate those vulnerabilities or to remediate those vulnerabilities. Alongside, government also from Ministry of Home Affairs taken a new initiative through Cyber Jagrukta Divas, so that they have given a directive with 12 months calendar with almost 48 to 50 topics. So in this process, all the companies must educate the employees with those 48 to 50 topics. So, so these guidelines, regulations are to help the organizations to improve the cybersecurity posture and to safeguard themselves from cyber attacks.
Yeah, so you rightly said these days even government is also pushing different regulations, and for awareness point of view, they are more concerned. Even different banks, RBI, coming up with a innovative way to educate their customer, and not only customer, that on a bank side as well as non-banking side. So Makarand, do you have any point on all these regulation point? How you handle these new regulations in your organization?
So basically, we need to look at why there's so much of trigger point which is coming on from the regulator, right? So nowadays, there's a lot of this breaches, attacks, at the supply chain attacks, which we are, observing or we are coming across on a day-to-day basis, which has triggered the regulators to, come up or align their existing frameworks or policies in the like global frameworks. Like for example, the recently IRDA guidelines which they have rolled out is purely aligned with NIST framework, right? Identification of what is the requirement which is called out by the regulators and implementing it in organizations are two different things, because there will always be an expectation gap between what the regulator is saying versus what is actually being implemented at the organization level. Also, so we need to take a one step back basically. I feel that, how it is applicable to you, you need to make certain representations if required wherever possible. And awareness is something which is very important, wherein Raja also rightly said that, I believe basically our customers, our employees are the first gatekeepers for, from the cyber awareness perspective. I personally feel that if they are very much well aligned with the latest threats or various risks which they as a, customers are going to face, or frauds which are, kind of, floating around in the industry or in the market. So that helps us as an organization to, safeguard us at some level. Speaking about, there is also a lot of focus which has been brought in on incident management, considering, the increase in breaches. A regulator is also trying to push for, earlier there were 48 hours reporting, now it has come down to 6 hours reporting. One more point I want to highlight here is that, while the regulator is speaking organizations or entities to report it within 6 hours, but what about the third parties? For example, given in the current scenarios, I get to know if there is any breach or any kind of attack which has happened at my partner's end much more prior to before even he realizes it. So in that case, there are no explicit guidelines wherein, if I come across or if I get to know that there is a breach or there is an incident which has happened at my partner's end, do I need to report it to CERT? As a best practice, of course, we liaise with that particular partner or the supply chain entity, and then probably we report it to regulators. But at the same time, that sync up or that synchronization between your supply chain value partners is also very important. So I believe, there has to be a synergy between all the partners and the organization in case of such incidents, basically, right? It's wherein now what we as an organization have started doing out is that we have started pushing this particular clauses from our contractual obligations also. The moment a partner identified that any specific incident or a breach which could impact ICICI Lombard as an organization, we are asking them that they need to report us within 6 hours. So see, few of these controls we have started implementing it at our organization now.
So you rightly pointed for this third party. So recently RBI has come up with a master direction on how to regulate all the third parties, and that's applicable to all banks, NBFC, and all entity under RBI regulation. And I would like to highlight, like last month I was in an event, and one of the CEO of a big bank said, look, we cannot run without our partner, our third party. So role of third party is equally important. And implementation of cyber controls at third-party level, it's a required. Without implementing all this control, you cannot survive, because we have seen in a couple of months back a big NBFC, though it's a subsidiary of bank, their partner was hit by a ransomware attack, and their data was in a public domain. Right? So it's a very important aspect to keep control on your third party as far as cyber are concerned. So anyone can add on this third party security control?
So I would just like to add on to what Bhavesh just said. So from the third party angle, I personally feel that we are living in the world of nth party, in fact. Right, wherein we also need to understand that, okay, our third parties, what kind of crown jewels that I'm sharing it with them, but also what are the, how he is further processing it or further sharing it with them or other partners, right? So having that visibility, that clarity is also very important. And how you guys governing it is also an equal challenge what we have. I mean, I'll leave it up to the panelists to speak.
Yeah. So now I will move to, after regulation because our agenda to discuss Cybersecurity 2.0, and the biggest strength or control to implement Cybersecurity 2.0 will be threat intelligence. So I will ask to Jitendra ji about what you think about threat intelligence and role of SOC in this Cybersecurity 2.0.
Good morning, and thanks, Bhavesh. First of all, when you say 2.0, it is the era of the CISOs. 2.1, all we playing supporting role, in 2.0, we are playing a main role. So the CISO, this is a dawn of a CISO era. So there are 2 points. One is the threat intelligence and one is on the SOC. Now, there was this discussion around the table some time ago, is SOC something required or it is something which is going to be die out in the future? I, as a CISO, depend on the SOC as if it's the heart of my whole body. The SOC is something which cannot ever disappear, and SOC is one which is helping us in doing everything. It's like a nerve center. So for NASA, when its missile is being launched, the war room is a nerve center for all CISOs. Most of us who have the SOC know how important the SOC is. So SOC is going to remain forever. In fact, it's going to be now evolving into an automated SOC. It's going to have an XDR and MDR. So SOC itself is going to remain, because SOC is what? The SOC is the Security Operations Center, where I have the asset discovery end-to-end. All our devices are connected to the SOC, and we have 24/7 monitoring. It is like a device which is monitoring my heart. If heartbeat even misses something, I would have a problem in my whole body. So the SOC is going to be there, because 24/7 monitoring now is very essential, because the threats are coming from all over the globe. So we don't know from which area, from which part of the world a threat would emerge. And that is why these agents on the SOC are monitoring it 24/7. It helps me in doing the asset discovery. It helps me in getting the alerts. Then I can get these alerts to be, identified to be major, minor, and I can take appropriate action. It also gives me most important point about incident management with my IT team, and it gives me a data which is to be reported to RBI on any incident. So I think, Bhavesh, the SOC is the bedrock of security operations of the security CISO, and it will remain forever. In fact, it will evolve into multiple more. And XDR is going to be the one which is coming up, and MDR is now also catching up. So I think that the SOC is going to remain, and you will be having much more variants of the SOC which are going to be coming in. Threat intelligence is very essential. You have to have a threat intelligence service which keeps on telling you how is the threat actors evolving across the globe. And we have got 4 agencies who are providing us a threat intelligence services around the clock. And this threat intelligence also goes to my SOC, and I am able to be knowing what is the emerging thing. And if anything is to be taken, for example, threat intelligence talks about a new ransomware point which is coming up. Immediately incident is created, and my IT team is told to take a certain actions or block something on the firewall. So threat intelligence is a very, very useful aid to the CISOs, and the SOC is the bedrock of the CISO operations, Bhavesh. That's my view.
Yeah, so SOC is very important. You rightly said, it's the heart of that entire security operations. And nowadays, that XDR powers SOC, MDR, all these things are coming up. So sort of it's a next generation SOC, you can say. Earlier we used to have a SIM tool in our organization, a big team to analyze each and every logs. Then now we have everything is outsourced. It's all a managed SOC. So my next question is with the Niketan. So how you feel like evolution of this XDR, EDR, and it's a link with somewhere threat intelligence as well as SOC. So how you perceive with this new technology XDR?
Thank you, Bhavesh, and a very good morning to all. So as you rightly said, that these technologies are evolving, and as Jitendra ji rightly touched base upon the SOC and threat intel. So my personal view is that having all these tools onboard into your SOC is one thing, but then we should always try and test these tools and optimize the efficacy of these tools from the per se wherein the cyber incidents are evolving, the attackers are coming out with the innovative techniques, they are evolving their attack methodologies. So we have to get in line to, we have to understand their modus operandi, how they are operating. And in the same way, I think as in these tools are evolving, we have to, optimize and use this in a way that we actually that help us to prevent from any, unfortunate event taking place. So as far as the SOC and threat intel is concerned, one of the most important thing is threat hunting, what I would really like to touch upon. We are living in an age wherein every single day we are able to see a new attack coming in. So hunting is something wherein that could help us to be into more proactive mode. Using XDR, EDR. So the days are gone wherein we used to have antiviruses and say that this is helping us to mitigate the cyber threats. But now, as in we have XDR, EDR, so having the correlations in place and having the visibility, having the less dwell time, having more time for the analyst to analyze the way they are getting the alerts, what is happening around the network and across the network. So that is something wherein we should really look forward to.
Yeah, so, Makarand, what's your take on this SOC and handling this XDR?
No, no, I mean, I would just want to talk about just build upon a fact that we are having this word about XDR and MDR coming up and managed SOC, but all of us at the CISOs, personally, we feel that the EDR is something which all of us should have, because EDR is the next generation, which in earlier days, we used to have antivirus, which was signature-based reactive. And with this EDR, now we have become more proactive, that you are able to do behavioral analytics and identify things as they happen rather than reactive. So these XDR, MDR are not a passing fad, which my colleague will talk about it here, but this EDR and SOC, if we do not have it strongly focused upon, then we are going to be in big trouble. So EDR and SOC are the bedrock for any security operations, and I think the panelists will talk about more about the XDR and MDR, so I will listen from them.
So Bhavesh, in my opinion, from the SOC perspective, right, the key elements I personally believe is that just for as an organization to identify, are my crown jewels integrated with my SOC? That's the first thing to begin with. Second thing is that, while, we have partners, for example, or we have teams who says that, okay, everything looks green, everything is integrated. But is there something, a due diligence which has been carried out just to see whether the logs which are coming in are really making sense? Is it really passing has been done carefully or not? The very important piece I want to bring it to the forum here is that, while the logs are getting stored and we all of us say that, okay, it's 6 months online, 6 months offline and 12 months offline, how many of us actually do a, kind of restoration drill of those logs? Normally we tend to do this thing when an incident happens, and that's where actually the challenges all of us, wakes up, why is this taking so much of time to restore it from a specific repository or the logs? So in my personal opinion, I feel that those checks and balances on a periodic basis, just to see whether, how abreast you are with in case of any incident happens, from the log analysis perspective, intelligence perspective, that's where all these hygiene checks are very important from SOC perspective.
So, I totally agree with you. So when we are discussing Cybersecurity 2.0, we must not forget Cybersecurity 1.0. So all basic hygiene, basic controls related to cybersecurity must be educated. Fine, like backup, log management, storage of log, and now even regulation of certain to, preserve the SOC for a certain time period as per different regulation. That is very important. And that log should be readily available as per regulation. Like first, you must preserve log. Then it should be readily available whenever regulators or any agency wants your log, that should be available, unless you will be in trouble. Yeah, you are, Niketan, you are adding something on this.
Yeah, so in addition to what Makarand said, I think having log restoration is one thing, but from the SOC perspective, I think, having incident drills, mock drills within the SOC in a regular intervals is something wherein that can help us to identify the loopholes and the gap. Again, we have a lot of technologies in place. Every company is striving very hard to get those technologies and the platforms, but as in this mock drills would really help us to identify the gaps, which this technology will really go hand in hand to secure that organization. So that's it, what I wanted to add.
Great. So now we have in every organization we have so many security technologies implementation happening, and it's integration. So measuring the effectiveness of these security controls are equally important. So my question is with Prashant. So what's your thought on on these performance monitoring of all these security technologies or controls implemented in the organization? How you are handling at your organization, like how to measure that effectiveness of all these controls?
Thanks, Bhavesh, and good morning to all. Prior to answering your question, I will add up because Mr. Raja and we are talking about logs and certain. So I will make the coordination between them. The major challenges between certain actually. Certain talks about the NTP, certain talk about the maintaining logs for 180 days. The problem is the maintaining logs is for 180 days for a decent size of organization. The daily log I can say is generated 1 TB because every organization do some due diligence like BI or BA on the logs. So almost the log size got increases. And also some of the critical logs includes the PII information like a first name or username. So sharing the logs with the certain can be violation of GDPR or privacy laws. And then we talk about the NTP servers. They have given NICs to NPC servers. One is samai1.nic.in, one is samai2.nic.in, and one server is from NPL, National Physical Laboratory, is time.nplindia.com. Challenge is also because my firewall, I have configured my firewall on these servers, and it's really tricky. These servers, all the NTP server are overwhelmed. I sometimes get time synchronization error on my firewall because this NTP server does not support any cast. They do multicast. So there are a lot of challenges. Even though reporting incidents in a certain, they have given a printable format of PDF. And that you have to print it and fill it and send it to them. Okay, now if you think about the certain guideline, it is directive. I'm not a law expert, but as can I recalled, that directive came on the 28th of April 2022 under section 70B subsection C, and it is a punishable offense if you doesn't report them. I think the punishment is 1 year imprisonment and 1 lakh. I don't want to threaten somebody, but thing is like think about if your network got scanned, you have to report to certain. If in a decent size of organization, their public IPs can be scanned thousands of times, and you have to report by that printable PDF format. It's a really actually it's a tricky. Being in a bank, I'm from the bank. Let's say if any cyber incidents happen and it involves the money transaction, to whom I have to report? I have to report primarily RBI, that's my regulator. If the fraud happened due to ATM, RuPay card, UPI, then I have to report to NPCI. Then also certainly certain, and also there is another directive is called from the NCI IPC, National Critical Information Infrastructure Support. That also we have to report. And then then also cyber police, cybercrime division also. So one of the best initiatives, I think the cyber fraud, the government has taken initiatives that the toll-free number 1997, and that is really powerful. If you have suffered any fraud related, just call on 1997 because bank has obligation to resolve that immediately. Then now I'm coming to your monitoring and smart monitoring kind of question actually. Certainly, nowadays, yesterday we had a good conference on the AI/ML, and we discussed on the AI/ML and future of the AI/ML in the monitoring. Certainly, nowadays atomization is there everywhere, like a EDR, XDR, you can say SOC, SOAR teams, almost all is have the atomization rules. So certainly, if you talk about the layer defense perspective, we have to monitor everything by the layer wise, obviously, like from the application layer, by server level, by perimeter level. Also, don't forget the external parameters, some of like a DNS record or our SSL, TLS certificate which are expiring. Everything we have to monitor. We need a complete you can say it's a dashboard, but you cannot manage all the things in one thing because it's very hard to put everything together in one single dashboard from the different endpoints and collecting a data. So our job always increases, but I think whatever the atomization and everything is there, but manual intervention should be needed because the cognitive decision making part should be comes under us CISO, and that's a critical job to decide whether what decisions you have to take. Like there are a lot of false positive, and our system is involving SIM and SOC. In my organization, actually, we are from the basically cooperative bank, so we always have the budget constraints, so we don't have state-of-art technologies, so we struggle a lot. But nowadays, with the SIM, we are recently implemented SIM, and we are quite happy with it. Thank you.
So, Jitendra, can you put some light on measuring the effectiveness of security control in the organization, how it's important for organization to measure that effectiveness?
So I think, as they say that every process is as good or bad as the efficiency measure of the process. And hence on a security side, the most important thing, at least when I look at it from a CISO, are the controls. And yes, we do agree when we discuss among ourselves in the CISO forum, and I'm sure most of you also resonate that there is a lot of more governance has come from the RBI, and the reporting has increased a lot, as my friend was saying out here. But these controls, like RBI Master Direction October 22 version which has come, has talked about huge number of controls which have to be measured and monitored by us. So when I look at it from the opportunity side, Bhavesh, what I feel is that all of us CISO should look at these additional controls as an opportunity to ensure that our systems are stringently monitored. And today, the board and the management are more than ever happy to look at us. And if we show them these controls, we show them these monitoring dashboards, then we get the investment faster from them. And monitoring the control is good enough for us only, because any control which is lax and lapse, we don't know how will because the threat actors are thinking much more beyond than what we are thinking. So I think we as a CISOs, these controls and the monitoring of and reporting is very essential, should be taken very seriously, and we should actually make a dashboard of reporting to senior management, because this gives an opportunity to keep us engaged and make them also alert and aware what monitoring we are doing and what investment we want to tighten the controls better. I think it's an opportunity, and we should be more diligent in looking at these controls and reporting these parameters on a regular daily basis or a weekly basis to management also.
You rightly said, measuring control, to understand their effectiveness is very important. I would like to just quote this World Economic Forum 2023 one data, where it said 98% board members now started listening cyber risk in the board meeting. But then question come, how many of them, really hearing you? Whatever you are presenting to the board, that's a different stuff. How much they are taking it, that's a totally different stuff. That's why measuring of security control in the organization and presenting in a better way, aligned with risk metrics related to all these controls is very important. Then only your management will understand. Because most of the board members are more or less, non-technical. But now RBI is pushing one board member, which should have a, IT background. So to convince the board, and my friend rightly said, there's always a budget constraint for a security thing. So if you will present your security effectiveness, risk, and mitigation strategy, then only money will come from the board. That's my take. So Rajaji, you have any take on these, how to measure that effectiveness of security control?
Yeah, having security appliances, practices in place, effectiveness must be measured and must be audited by a third party. So every company must think of having cyber security and cyber architecture review done by a third party, so that effectiveness of the controls is giving the intended results. Just not by, probably I was talking to some other CISO in last week. Security appliance is there in place and it was not configured properly. So I will not take the name, but it is giving adverse results. So having things in place and getting it audited or reviewed by the OEMs at first place, and then getting it audited and reviewed by a third party, which will help organizations, because affording security expert in-house is a costly affair. And nowadays we have to have different makes of firewall and proxy, DLP, then your link load balancer, all these things from different OEMs, and having expert resource for each of these appliances is also not possible. So getting these appliances, security appliances, audited, reviewed, whether they are configured properly or not from a third party, is inevitable.
So I have point here.
To add something, Bhavesh, here. You know, one of the aspects just came to my mind to share with you all, because that's a good practice someone taught me and I am doing it. You know, each of these, today the whole of the security architecture is a jargon of PAM, is jargon of EDR, is jargon of NAC, and all those devices have come together and they all come into the SOC. But when you will ask your security partner to give you the performance parameters of each of these devices or each of these processes, and you tell them to consolidate together in one dashboard, then you also get to see how are these operating effectively or no, and you can then have a daily, weekly, or a monthly dashboard to keep even them on check. So this performance monitoring also keeps you a tool to ensure that your team members, which is spread across the geography or across the dimensions, are really performing in addition to communicating to the management teams.
Yeah. So just I would like to add here, because we have some constraint in our security technology, because we have n number of technologies, but they are not talking each other. That is the biggest problem all CISOs are facing, because we have multiple reports, but no reports talks about each other. So there should be some kind of platform or technology where all these technology can be integrated, and a holistic approach about organizations' security controls need to, come out. That's a very important aspect. Yeah.
So Bhavesh, I will answer that question, but before that I want to take a step back. When we speak about control effectiveness monitoring, right, while we do a regular audits, assessment done from the third party, it is also important to identify how do we automate this. Like for example, few of the things which how we have implemented it is that, of course, these assessments and all are part of the traditional model which is going on, but on an ongoing basis, we are also trying to achieve the control effectiveness through a breach and attack simulation kind of a solution or a program, wherein it gives me a control effectiveness score by having some payloads getting triggered as a simulation across various level of infrastructures or the security level of defense. And it gives me a real-time, points or the observations which are weak in my systems, right? And it helps me to, fix the vulnerability or that weakness at that given point of time. I don't have to wait for my yearly cycle or a half-yearly cycle or a quarterly cycle. That's how normally where we, get these audits done. So this kind of solutions, automizations also helps us to, fix the things right there and there itself, so that, whatever the weakness has been identified, that could get solved at that given point of time. That's one part. Second thing is that where you mentioned about, why we have all this multiple solutions and how do we integrate it, right? So the second piece to this is, right, wherein we are having concern of, asking board for budgets and everything, right? So how are we integrating this? So the next level is something known as risk quantification. Now, risk quantification basically helps us to, plug in all these particular observations or logs, what we have from various security tools, and plug in into a central repository, which will give me a risk score or risk quantification from the angle of how do I prioritize my risk, right? Where there is thousands of weakness or vulnerabilities which an organization might have. But me as a CISO or an security function, how do I prioritize this to reduce the risk score or the risk exposure to the organization? Through this risk quantification process or the framework, that helps me first to identify what is my risk posture. Second is that how much of them could get covered by my cyber insurance also, because that's also a very important piece in today's world, right? And in case if there's a gap between my risk exposure and the coverage of my cyber insurance, that's something wherein, the board would also be, thoughtful about that. How do I cover the risk which is, unattended or the residual risk? So I believe that's how we can tie up this end-to-end journey of, identification of weakness, trying to plug it with the real-time integration with multiple solutions, and then having a risk quantifications to demonstrate to the management also that what is the risk exposure that they have for their organization. And then accordingly, prioritization of budgets and all can come handy through this particular process is what my opinion is.
I think most of us, we have recently started measuring the efficiency of the risk posture using the CIS score. So using the CIS score, which is an internationally accepted norms and the board understands that good, I think we should get into a habit not only monitoring the weekly, monthly or daily, but also look at this CIS score concept of quantification of the security posture, which board members will be more than eager to understand and then help us with investments to make the score better.
Anyone want to add? Okay, so now I'm moving to other aspect that is, quite burning. So you might have remember when this, because GDPR came, and then through one Supreme Court ruling, they asked for, data privacy law. In 2018, Sri Krishna Commission report came. So when Sri Krishna Commission report came, it looks a complete legal document. So people having thought process, okay, it will be the baby of legal department with a support function like risk, then IT, security will support them. And it will be the baby of legal department. But then a new draft came after discussion in Parliament in 2022. It was diluted a little bit somewhere. It's more with legal, less with IT. But now when we saw that new draft, digital data protection bill, it looks it's a more related to security, IT, and less related to legal department. Yes, legal angle is still there because it talks about that data principal rights, different aspect related to PII data, financial information, sensitive personal data. All these aspects remain there. But custodian or main stakeholders has moved drastically from 2018 to 2023. And I think last month, Government of India through their Attorney General has given in a writing in Supreme Court that by monsoon session will pass this digital data privacy bill. So this will be a big change in an entire ecosystem where data plays a main role. So now I will ask with our panel member, we'll start with the Makarand. So what's your thought? And have you started working? Because I know ICICI must have started working on data privacy and in this digital frame.
So I believe while the whole concept of India having its own digital or a privacy act is on its way probably, and hopefully it should pass in this monsoon session. But however, I believe the industry or the organizations have already started their journey like couple of years back, or probably in 2018 I would say. While the data protection law and all was there in UK already, but then GDPR when it came in 2018, because the overall global ecosystem wherein most of these organizations having their processors or controllers across the globe, so the compliance or the thought process of privacy has already started. We as an organization, what we have thought is that whenever the privacy bill comes, but a couple of years back we have started our journey. So how do we as an insurance company, the crown jewel which we have is customer data, right? So the first thing for any of the organization is to focus on the key important parameters. I mean, it starts with what is the kind of data that you collect and why you collect the data, because traditionally, normally we used to collect anything and everything. But is it solving my purpose? What is the purpose? Why are we collecting that particular data? Starting with, having a focus on the consent management, because that's very important, and, and the consent, normally we all would have heard about it. It should be crystal clear, specific, and all of that. So that's the first point I believe any organization should start in the privacy journey, from the consent angle. Second thing, which is very important, is like a threat modeling, right? Threat modeling is something to begin with, but then it would lead to what kind of data that I'm collecting, where am I storing, and who are the stakeholders who have access to it. And having this in a single repository or a single dashboard, right? And it should also have a connection to my third parties, to whom I'm going to share it. Because the moment you have this visibility or a central dashboard or an inventory, it makes your life simpler to, implement controls like, data privacy. Because it's not only because if we are the controllers, I'm sure we have a partner ecosystem, right? Those are my processors. And how do I control them? Of course, I will control them through my contractual obligations. So a small thing is about data classification, data flow analysis, basically. So it's more about where the data is storing, how it's storing, and appropriate security controls that you need to implement at each level of it. The very important piece, I believe, is that privacy impact assessment, right? When we speak about privacy impact assessment, right from the development cycle, like nowadays we speak about DevSecOps and all that, right? So how do you ensure at the beginning of the product or the journey, while whatever your organization is developing, how do you take care of this privacy aspect? So that is also very important. Like, for example, data masking, right? Data masking is a very important thing. I mean, believe most of the banks have implemented this probably as a part of PCI DSS compliance or anything, but this thing was there from the day one, from the beginning or the inception, right? Data masking concept, because the moment you have this simple controls implemented, at the end of the day, see what is that we are trying to address, that, whatever the data is leaked, they should not be able to trace it back to an individual. Ultimately, this is what we are trying to objective. So if we have certain small controls implemented to begin with, I believe whenever the bill gets passed, I believe all these things will come handy. In my personal opinion, how we have started implementing is that we have identified those crown jewels or the crown departments in our organization, and we have started the journey specific as a demo for that. We will make mistakes and then we will learn it from them, and that's how we will replicate at the organization level.
Raja, can you add something on this?
So as far as data privacy is concerned, we are yet to get that bill passed in the parliament. We have certain laws already in place, IT Act, and even under IPC, we have certain laws already in place, and they are in bits and pieces. If we look at the IT and ITES market, most of our exports to is US and UK. And they are mostly governed by GDPR and then HIPAA in US. So we have to look at it as an opportunity if we get this bill passed. So most of the times we are insensitive to our PII data. So whenever we go out for a SIM card, we give our Aadhaar card, and they take a copy and they retain it. They don't mask it. So once these stringent rules comes into place, then it will be good for us. And as far as from insurance standpoint, we do underwrite policies, group medical policies for corporates. So for Europe companies, they mandate to have this privacy PII data to be safeguarded. So they come up with a big questionnaire whether you are complying with this, that. So we see whenever we get a questionnaire, then our team afraid of it, because it takes at least 4 to 5 hours to fill those questionnaires. And as part of their GDPR, we have to have data in transit to be encrypted, data at rest is to be encrypted, and then certain their data to be maintained in a separate database, not with common database. So certain guidelines are already there. So we maintain these things, then we will get good opportunities from Europe countries. So one of the challenge in this is their basic requirement is that data is to be encrypted. So there is always a fight between the development team and then security team. If we encrypt the data, then there will be performance issue. Yeah. So then we have certain discussions in place, and then what we decided in our company is we will encrypt only the few PII components, few columns of a database encrypted as of now, and encrypting everything will take degrade the performance. So in a sense, PII is going to give more opportunities if we implement from US and UK markets.
Jitendra ji, very quick comment because we are running out of time.
No, I mean, my only comment was one to all of us sitting out here. It's not the question of the bill. It's the question of demonstrating responsibility to the information we collect from the customer. And I'm from a finance company, and I have noticed it. Till the time the loan is not dispersed, I want information, I want information. But when the loan is dispersed, what happens with the information is nobody's botheration. And that is where I think this bill is bringing on, be accountable and responsible for the information we collect from our stakeholders, because it is not our data, it is their data. So once we are collecting, we should be responsible, and this bill should be seen in that light.
So thank you all panel members. So we can take one or two questions, though we are running out of time. Any question?
Before we start with questions on the floor, ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for this wonderful panel. First panel of the day 2, and what a great session we had. Now we have limited time though, but still we can take 2 quick questions, I believe, from the audience. So please raise your hand and you will get the mic, and please introduce yourself and your organization and question to which specific panel member. If it's a generic question, I believe, then the moderator can easily decide. So any questions from the floor?
No question is very dangerous because the subject even we have not understood.
But I'd like to just add one last point on this data privacy, because it's going to impact on our technology side. So every organization must be ready with their policy, data privacy policy, guidelines, and some operating aspect and the impact on technology. That impact assessment must be done. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bhavesh ji. And now I would request the honorable panel members to kindly be on stage. And I would like to call on stage Mr. Vasant D, Technical Consultant and Strategic Accounts from Manage Engine, to kindly do the honors of felicitating this wonderful panel of experts. Vasant, welcome to the stage. We'll proceed first with Mr. Makarand Kadave. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause to Makarand for his wonderful contribution in the panel. Moving next to Jitendra Jadhwani ji. A big round of applause to Jitendra ji for his wonderful contribution in the panel session. Thank you, sir. Moving next to Mr. Raja Mohan Kandlakunta. A big round of applause to Raja Mohan ji for his wonderful contribution in the panel session. Moving next to Mr. Prashant Arbat. A big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Prashant and his wonderful contributions in the panel. Moving next, ladies and gentlemen, to Mr. Niketan Jadhav. A big round of applause to Niketan for his wonderful contribution in the panel. And our honorable moderator, Mr. Bhavesh Kumar. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause to Bhavesh ji for wonderfully moderating the panel session. I would humbly request the honorable panel members to come to the center stage, and Vasant, if you could also join them for a group photograph. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause once again to the first and inaugural panel of the day 2, Strategic Cybersecurity 2.0, from combating viruses to protecting organization.